Linda Wilson gazed through the rain-streaked window at the children playing beyond the school fence. A small figure in a yellow raincoat burst from the crowd. "Mommy!" Emily shouted as she ran toward her. Jason followed, jumping over small puddles as he chased after his sister. "What did you do today?" Linda asked, gently stroking her daughter's wet hair. "We made volcano models in science class. The teacher said mine was the best." Emily answered proudly. Like a typical 10-year-old girl, she had a rainbow keychain dangling from her pink backpack. "I got an A in math," 7-year-old Jason reported, not to be outdone. This ordinary elementary school parking lot in the suburbs of Louisville, Kentucky, brought Linda the happiest moments of her day. Time spent with her children gave her strength no matter how tired she was. As Linda opened the door of her aging car for the children to climb in, her cell phone rang. Her expression clouded the moment she saw the name on the screen. "Linda, about this weekend, I want to pick up the kids Friday afternoon. I'll be finishing work early," Michael Bradley's voice echoed through the phone. "But you previously said Saturday morning." "Plans changed." "Is that a problem?" Michael's voice was cold. Linda lowered her voice so the children couldn't hear. "I've told you many times that sudden changes are difficult. I have plans too. I have a right to see my children." Michael's voice had a stubbornness that wasn't there before. "I'll pick them up at 4 p.m. on Friday." "That works, right?" It sounded like a question, but it was an order. Linda sighed in resignation. "Fine." After hanging up, she glanced at the children in the rearview mirror. Emily was staring out the window while Jason played with a toy dinosaur. Since the divorce 2 years ago, Linda had worked desperately to support these two. She had somehow managed to maintain the household that had been torn apart by Michael's betrayal. Her job at the local insurance company didn't pay particularly well, but the flexible working hours helped with raising her children. Her ex-husband Michael worked as a capable engineer at a major local technology company, and child support from him was an important source of income for Linda's family. Recently, however, he had suddenly started trying to spend more time with the children, making Linda anxious. "Mom, are we going to Dad's house?" Emily was looking at Linda's eyes through the rearview mirror. Sharp children sense adult tension acutely. "Yes, you'll be spending the weekend with Dad," Linda forced a smile. "Aren't you excited?" Emily nodded silently. Jason exclaimed, "Yay! I can play with Dad's new gaming console." Linda smiled, but complex emotions swirled inside her. Her divorce from Michael had been caused by his infidelity. At the time, she had been devastated to learn that her beloved husband was having an affair with another woman. Now, however, that pain had become a dull memory. She turned onto Central Parkway and drove toward their small home. The old brick house wasn't luxurious, but the well-maintained garden and bright yellow door gave it a warm impression. "Did you say Thomas was coming?" Emily asked as she headed toward the front door. "Yes, we'll have dinner together," Linda answered. "He's bringing his homemade lasagna." "Yay!" Jason cheered. Thomas's lasagna is the best in the world. Thomas Green was a radiologic technologist whom Linda had met and she had a blood test at the hospital. He was gentle and kind to the children. What started as mere friendship had gradually deepened. The doorbell rang, and when Jason ran to open it, there stood Thomas holding a casserole dish with lasagna. He was a quiet, mild-mannered man whose sincere blue eyes behind his glasses conveyed honesty. "Hungry?" Thomas asked as he gently patted Jason's head. "Starving," Jason answered dramatically. Emily said hello to Thomas and headed to the kitchen. Linda kissed Thomas on the cheek and whispered, "Thank you." His presence gave her comfort. At dinner, the four laughed together as they talked about school and work. Thomas helped Jason with his math problems and asked enthusiastic questions about Emily's volcano model. Watching this scene, Linda felt hopeful that a new family structure was finally emerging. Later that night, after the children had gone to bed, Linda confided her concerns to Thomas. Michael has been very pushy about the children lately. It's strange. Thomas took her hand. Is there a reason? I don't know. But he's spending more time with the children. And I think he knows about you and me. Emily might have said something, Linda sighed. Michael was always controlling. Me starting a new relationship might be beyond what he can tolerate. Thomas embraced her. It'll be all right. We'll get through this together. Linda felt somewhat reassured in his arms, but anxiety lingered in a corner of her mind. Tuesday afternoon, Linda's cell phone rang. Her chest tightened when she saw Riverside Elementary on the screen. Mrs. Wilson. Emily fell from the playground equipment and got hurt. There's a possibility of a fracture, the tense voice of the school nurse informed her. I'll be right there, Linda couldn't hide the tremor in her voice. She informed her boss of the emergency and hurried to the school. While driving, she contacted Thomas, who was working at the city hospital. I think Emily has a fracture. I'm bringing her to your emergency room. Got it. I'll let my colleagues know. See you soon. His calm voice gave her reassurance. At the school, Emily was lying on a bed in the nurse's room. Her face was wet with tears, and she was cradling her right arm. Mom, it hurts. It's going to be okay. We're going to the hospital, Linda gently kissed her daughter's forehead. What happened? I climbed to the top of the jungle gym, then my hand slipped. Emily teared up again. Linda filled out the necessary school forms and took Emily to the hospital. After waiting briefly in the waiting room, a nurse called Emily's name. Thomas is waiting, Linda tried to reassure her daughter. When they entered the examination room, Thomas was waiting in his white coat. Hey, Emily. That must have been rough, he said kindly. Dr. Clark, my colleague, will examine you today. Dr. Clark was a middle-aged woman who carefully examined Emily's arm with a warm smile. We'll need to take an X-ray. It might be fractured. Will it hurt? Emily asked in a frightened voice. Not at all, Dr. Clark answered. If you stay still, it'll only take a few seconds. Thomas turned to Linda. Since it's my department, I'll take a special look at it, he said quietly. Did you contact Michael? Linda nodded and took out her cell phone. I'm about to. Michael answered after just one ring. What is it? Emily fractured her arm at school. We're in the emergency room at City Hospital. A heavy sigh could be heard on the other end. I'll come right away. Michael's voice was more tense than usual. Is there anything else they found? Linda frowned. What do you mean? It's just a fracture. No, nothing. I'll be right there. Michael hung up hastily. Linda closed her phone, puzzled. Michael's reaction seemed slightly excessive. Emily returned from the X-ray room, and Dr. Clark and Thomas were examining the images. Both were looking at something with serious expressions. Thomas whispered something to his colleague, encouraging her to check the image again. Is something wrong? Linda asked anxiously. Dr. Clark tightened her expression. Mrs. Wilson, there's something we need to discuss. Is it the fracture? Yes, it's a simple fracture of the radius. However, Dr. Clark paused as if choosing her words. We found something in Emily's arm, unrelated to the fracture. Linda felt her chest tighten. What do you mean? The doctor called Thomas and asked for his professional opinion. Thomas checked the X-ray again, and his face changed. His hands began to tremble. This is... Thomas lowered his voice. A microchip. Not something implanted for medical purposes. A microchip. Linda repeated in disbelief. What does that mean? Someone intentionally. Thomas began to say when the examination room door burst open. Michael rushed in, breathless. Emily. Are you okay? He rushed to his daughter, but his gaze immediately turned to the X-ray screen. When Thomas and Michael made eye contact, a palpable tension filled the room. Linda could see that the blood had drained from Michael's face, and sweat was forming on his forehead. What's going on? Linda was beginning to feel confused and angry. Someone explain. Dr. Clark said in a calm but firm voice, a microchip, not for medical purposes, has been implanted in Emily's arm. This is not a normal medical procedure. Linda looked at the X-ray. Indeed, a small white object was clearly visible near her daughter's bone. When? How? Linda stumbled over her words. Emily looked around at the adults in confusion. Mom, what happened? Am I okay? Linda came to her senses and hugged her daughter. You're fine, don't worry. When she looked up, she saw Michael clutching his cell phone with trembling hands in the corner of the room. Fear was visible in his eyes. Thomas pointed at the X-ray. I recognize this chip. Isn't it from the series developed by your company, Mr. Bradley? Trackmaster. The air in the room froze. Michael's face turned pale, and instead of a response, only a low groan escaped him. Linda was gently stroking Emily's arm in its cast while giving her warm cocoa in the hospital cafeteria. The fracture had been treated, but her heart was still severely shaken. Microchip, that word continued to echo ominously in her head. Mom, where did Dad go? Emily asked anxiously. Michael had been taken to another room to speak with hospital administrators, accompanied by security guards. Dad is having a grown-up conversation, Linda answered. She herself didn't fully grasp the situation. Thomas entered the cafeteria. He had removed his white coat and was in casual clothes, but his face showed signs of fatigue. Is Michael still talking? Linda asked quietly. Thomas nodded as he sat down. The hospital's security and legal teams are with him. He's claiming he knows nothing about the chip. Unbelievable, Linda exhaled. What exactly is that chip? According to my colleague in radiology, it appears to be a high-performance tracking device. Normally, such devices are not implanted in human bodies. Thomas chose his words carefully. It was developed by Tech Innovation, Michael's company. But how, when did it get into Emily's body? Linda's words were interrupted by tears. Emily, Thomas turned gently to the girl. Have you ever injured your arm before? Even a small cut? Emily furrowed her brow thoughtfully. Last summer I fell and cut my arm at Dad's house. Dad's nurse friend treated it. Linda and Thomas exchanged glances. Dad's nurse friend. Linda couldn't hide her agitation. You didn't go to the hospital? No. Dad said it was a small cut so we could take care of it at home. A nurse named Sammy came and gave me an anesthetic shot, then stitched up the wound. Sammy. Linda tilted her head. I've never heard of Michael having such a friend. She was really nice, Emily continued innocently. But after the shot, I got sleepy, and when I woke up, my arm was bandaged. Suspicion grew in Linda's heart. She took out her smartphone and checked Michael's court records. He was still registered as her emergency contact on her smartphone after the divorce. Looking through recent call history, the name Samantha F. appeared multiple times. Thomas, Michael is hiding something big, Linda said in a trembling voice. We should contact the police. Thomas agreed. It's already been done. Dr. Clark reported it as an endangerment to a child. Detectives will arrive soon. 2 hours later, Linda was sitting in a small conference room at the Louisville police station. Detectives Baker and Powell faced her across the desk. Mrs. Wilson, your daughter's case is serious, Detective Baker said. We're questioning Mr. Bradley and his colleague, Samantha Foster, separately. Samantha Foster. Linda repeated the name. She's the nurse who treated Emily. She's not a nurse, Detective Powell said, looking at the file. Ms. Foster is a technician in the Medical Device Division of Tech Innovation. She has no nursing qualifications. What? Linda was speechless with shock. We've obtained a warrant and are searching Mr. Bradley's apartment, Detective Powell continued. Also, we'd like to ask Mr. Green about this chip. Do you know anything about it? Thomas shook his head. All I know is that, judging from the shape on the radiograph, it resembles a series called TrackMaster developed by Tech Innovation. It's originally for tracking logistics and high-value goods. Not for use in humans, Detective Powell confirmed. Absolutely not, Thomas asserted. It's an extremely dangerous act. The conference room door opened, and a young officer entered. Detective Baker, we've discovered crucial evidence in Bradley's apartment. Detective Baker stood up, apologized to Linda, and left the room. When he returned, his expression was stern. Mrs. Wilson, we've obtained access records to Tech Innovation servers, he said gravely. Mr. Bradley was regularly monitoring the device implanted in Emily. Not only that, but the chip also has voice recording capabilities. Voice recording. Linda trembled. You mean? He was eavesdropping on conversations in your home, Detective Powell said quietly. He seemed particularly interested in conversations with Mr. Green. Tears flowed from Linda's eyes. Anger and fear mingled at the realization that her home, privacy, and most of all, her beloved daughter had been exploited. According to Ms. Foster's confession, Detective Baker continued, she was having an affair with Mr. Bradley and implanted the chip during Emily's arm suture at his direction. Mr. Bradley was apparently trying to gather information to entrap you in a custody battle. Thomas placed his hand on Linda's shoulder. What a despicable act. Their plan wasn't limited to that, Detective Powell said. The seized computer contained detailed records of your daily behavior patterns, house layout, work schedule, and more. It appears they were planning to take Emily and Jason away. Linda was speechless. The fact that her ex-husband had used her own child to monitor her and ultimately planned to take her children away was beyond her imagination. Will they be arrested? Linda finally managed to ask. Arrest warrants have already been issued, Detective Baker answered. Multiple charges including child abuse, trespassing, privacy violation, and illegal medical practices. Can the chip be removed? Linda took a tissue with trembling hands. I've consulted with Dr. Roberts, a pediatric surgeon, Thomas explained. It can be removed with a short surgery tomorrow. We'll just tell Emily she needs a slightly longer procedure in addition to treating her fracture. When they left the conference room, Emily and Jason were waiting with a child welfare officer in the waiting area. Linda took a deep breath and approached the children. Emily, Jason, we're staying at Thomas's house tonight, she said as cheerfully as possible. Our house needs a little work done. What about Dad? Jason asked curiously. Linda and Thomas exchanged glances, and she knelt in front of her son. Dad has some work trouble. You might not see him for a while, but it's okay. We'll be together. When they arrived at Thomas's house, Linda put Emily to bed, then faced Thomas in the kitchen. What a day, she collapsed onto the table. Unbelievable, Thomas said as he poured coffee for both of them. But it's okay, Linda. The children and you are safe now. I can't believe Michael would go that far. Linda shook her head. He used his daughter as a guinea pig. The worst betrayal, Thomas said quietly. But tomorrow is a new day. We have to look forward, for the children's sake. Linda gazed at the dark night sky outside the window. Now that the terrifying truth had been revealed, a determination she had never felt before was growing in her heart. She had to be strong to protect her children and build a new future. The interrogation room at the Louisville police station was illuminated by the cold light of fluorescent lamps, with the wall clock quietly ticking away. Linda stared through the glass window at Michael, who was sitting at the table. The man she once loved was now wearing a gray detention uniform, his head bowed. Across from him, Detectives Baker and Powell had spread out mountains of evidence documents. This must be hard to watch. Thomas quietly placed his hand on Linda's shoulder. No, Linda answered calmly. I need to see this. For Emily. In the adjacent room, Samantha Foster was being questioned by other detectives. Her blonde hair was disheveled, and her makeup smudged. Her confession has made Michael's position even more difficult, explained Lieutenant Rodriguez, Detective Powell's assistant. Miss Foster has told us everything. She admits that on Mr. Bradley's instructions, she implanted a tracking device in Emily's arm last July. Linda nodded, but her expression remained hard. Yesterday, Emily's chip was successfully removed. Fortunately, the surgery was simple, and Emily was now resting at Linda's mother's house. Let me hear the recording tapes, Linda suddenly said. Lieutenant Rodriguez hesitated. Mrs. Wilson, that's part of the evidence. And, honestly, it might be painful to listen to. I have a right to know. Linda's voice was shaking but filled with determination. The lieutenant glanced at his superior, and after receiving approval, operated a tablet. Soft voices began to flow into the room. Linda, Thomas came again. Emily's innocent voice. He says he's making pasta tonight. Then, the sound of laughter from Linda, the children, and Thomas. Casual everyday conversations. The private moments of their home had been turned into something cold and alien. That's enough, Linda signaled with her hand to stop the recording. What was Michael planning to do with this? His computer contained edited files of conversations between you and Mr. Green, the lieutenant explained carefully. Fragments of conversations taken out of context, manipulated to make it appear as if you were an unsuitable mother. He apparently planned to submit them to family court. That's not all, Detective Baker said as he emerged from the interrogation room. The laptop we seized also contained detailed kidnapping plans. He was planning to take the children away this coming weekend and never return. The blood drained from Linda's face. Where to? Mexico, Detective Baker answered. With Miss Foster. They had even prepared new identification documents. Thomas squeezed Linda's hand. It's okay now. They've been caught. The children are safe. I want to see him, Linda suddenly said. Everyone in the room looked at her with surprised faces. Mrs. Wilson, that might not be wise, Detective Powell warned. Just once, for the last time, Linda said firmly. There's something I want to say to him. After careful discussion, the detectives permitted a brief meeting under supervision. Linda slowly opened the door to the interrogation room and entered. Michael looked up and saw his ex-wife. His face was etched with fatigue and fear. Linda. Linda sat down in a chair a little distance from him. Why? She asked simply. You wouldn't understand, Michael's voice was hollow. Try me, Linda said coldly. Michael rubbed his face with his hands. You took everything from me. The children, the house, my life itself. I did. Linda's voice was incredibly quiet. You were the one who cheated, Michael. I deserve the right to raise the children properly. Michael's voice gradually rose. You, with that radiologist, taking my children to his house. Thomas is kind to the children, Linda said. You used your daughter as a guinea pig. She's my child. Michael suddenly stood up and banged on the table. Security guards quickly entered the room. Linda doesn't deserve to raise them. They're my children. No, Michael, Linda slowly stood up. They're not your possessions. They're human beings. And now, you've been permanently excluded from their lives. Anger and despair flickered in Michael's eyes. Samantha told you everything, didn't she? That woman betrayed me. She admitted to implanting the chip, Linda said. And sending surveillance data to you. She'll say anything. To protect herself, Michael said bitterly. Linda stood up from her chair and headed to the door. Goodbye, Michael. Don't ever come near the children again. Linda! Michael shouted. You've taken everything from me. Linda closed the door, cutting off his words. Her heart had already regained its calm. Are you okay? Thomas asked worriedly. Yes, Linda took a deep breath. Now I need to think about the children. The following week, Linda and the children appeared in family court. An emergency hearing was held to determine Michael's custody and visitation rights. The judge considered Michael and Samantha's charges and granted Linda full custody. Additionally, a restraining order was issued against Emily and Jason. As they left the courthouse, Linda finally felt the burden lift from her shoulders. Thomas was smiling quietly beside her. Is it over? Emily looked up anxiously at her mother. She still had her cast, but the scar from the chip removal surgery was hidden under a small bandage. Yes, it's over, Linda hugged her daughter. We'll be together from now on. Dad's not coming anymore. Jason asked in a small voice. Linda looked into her son's eyes, considering how to explain. Dad is going to be far away for a while. He did something wrong, and he needs time to reflect on it. Did he do something bad? Jason tilted his head. Yes, Linda answered honestly. But what's important is that we're together. With people who love you. She glanced at Thomas. He returned her gaze with gentle eyes. That afternoon, the first hearing in Michael and Samantha's trial was held. The prosecution explained the charges, and both defendants were asked to enter pleas. Michael denied all charges, but Samantha admitted guilt. Outside the courthouse, Detective Baker approached Linda. Mrs. Wilson, how are your children doing? Getting better, little by little, Linda answered. Emily has nightmares, but we found a therapist for children. Good, the detective smiled. Regarding Mr. Bradley, the prosecution is seeking a minimum of 5 years in prison. For Ms. Foster, considering her cooperative attitude, it will be between 2 and 4 years. Linda nodded. She didn't wish for revenge. She just wanted to protect her children. Thank you, detective, she said with heartfelt gratitude. On the way home, Jason fell asleep in the car, and Emily silently stared out the window. What are you thinking about? Linda gently asked her daughter. Can we go back to normal? Emily's voice was small. Going to school, playing with friends. Of course, Linda reassured her. It might take time, but we'll be able to laugh again. That night, after the children had fallen asleep, Linda and Thomas sat on the porch, looking up at the night sky. It's been a long battle, Thomas said quietly. It's not over yet, Linda sighed. It will take time to heal the children's emotional wounds. We have time, Thomas took her hand. And most importantly, you're all safe now. Linda rested her head on his shoulder, feeling a peace she hadn't felt for weeks. A year later, in spring, a newly planted magnolia tree in Linda's garden was blooming its first flowers. In the spacious backyard, Emily and Jason were playing chase with their new puppy, Buddy. Their laughter was louder and more heartfelt than before. Linda took a sip of coffee as she watched the children through the kitchen window. On her left hand was a small diamond ring. 3 weeks ago, Thomas had proposed in the twilight of Central Park. "What are you thinking about?" Thomas embraced her from behind. Today, he had a rare day off from his hospital shift. "About happiness," Linda smiled. "I'm incredibly happy." Their new house was a little distance from the old one. After that terrifying incident, they couldn't continue living in the same house. The memories were too painful. Emily ran into the kitchen. "Mom, Buddy brought the ball back." Her eyes were shining. "Isn't he such a good boy?" "Yes, the best," Linda smiled. "Go wash your hands. Lunch is ready." There was a small scar on Emily's arm. One from the fracture, and one from where the chip had been removed. But her emotional wounds were gradually healing. The weekly therapy sessions were showing results, reducing the frequency of nightmares and anxiety attacks. Jason had also become brighter. In the first few months, he had asked about his father many times, but now he was getting used to their new family structure. Mail came. Thomas picked up a brown envelope. "Looks like it's from the court." Linda took a deep breath and opened the envelope. "It's the notification of Michael's final sentence." She read the contents and nodded quietly. As expected, 5 years in prison. Samantha got 2 years with probation. "She cooperated with testimony," Thomas said. "She told them everything Michael had planned." Linda stared out the window. "Samantha sent me a letter this morning." "What did it say?" "Words of apology." She thought Michael loved her, but she was just being used. Linda shrugged. "It's ironic. She was Michael's mistress, but in the end, she too was deceived by his lies." "Are you going to write back to her?" Thomas asked gently. "No," Linda said firmly. "The past is the past. We're looking forward." In the afternoon, the family enjoyed a picnic at a nearby park. Thomas taught Jason how to throw a frisbee, and Emily was building a secret base with her new friend, Sophia. Linda sat on a blanket and took out her diary. "What are you writing?" Thomas returned with a water bottle. "Our story," Linda smiled. "How a terrifying experience made us stronger. Now we can give the children a truly safe home in the real sense." She closed her diary and put down her pen. "It used to seem impossible, but we really did overcome it, didn't we?" Thomas sat down beside her, and together they watched over the children. Emily running around laughing. Jason joyfully catching the frisbee. And Buddy sleeping at their feet. "Family is wonderful," Linda held Thomas's hand. "The best," Thomas kissed her. Under the blue sky, the scar on Emily's arm faintly gleamed in the sunlight. It was no longer a memory of fear, but a symbol of the beginning of a new life. As Linda imprinted this scene in her heart, she felt her chest fill with gratitude for the days to come.